The World on Turtle's Back, an Iroquois creation story, adapted by the staff at Actively Learn. Many indigenous peoples have stories about creation. These tales explain how they came to be and how they ended up in their homeland. When we read these stories, we were able to get an idea of the beliefs before Europeans came to North America. Many of the northeastern indigenous groups shared a legend about creation. According to this story, the world was created on the back of a giant sea turtle. There are many different versions of this legend. The one that we share here comes from the Iroquois of New York State. This version was written in 1816 by John Norton. He was the son of Scottish and Cherokee parents and was adopted into the Mohawk tribe. The tradition of the Five Nations tribe goes as follows. In the beginning, before the earth was made, the country above the sky was where superior beings lived. Ruling above them all was the Great Spirit. The daughter of the Great Spirit became pregnant in an unlawful way. This made the Great Spirit very angry. He pulled up a tree by the roots and threw his daughter through the hole that was created. But to make sure that she didn't get destroyed, he ordered a great turtle to come up from the bottom of the waters to wait on the surface of the water to catch her. When she had fallen on the back of the turtle, she found some mud on his back to form the earth. Soon she had increased the size of the mud ball to the size of an island. The baby that was born to the Great Spirit's daughter was a girl. As she grew up, the earth grew bigger under her hands. When the young woman was old enough to be married, the spirits who were roaming about in the heavens took on human forms. Many of them proposed marriage to the young woman, but her protective mother turned down each offer. Finally, a middle-aged man came calling. He looked very proper, and he carried a bow in his hand and had a quiver full of arrows on his back. This time, the mother accepted him, and so he married the daughter. He then came into their house. But that night, he did not lie down to go to sleep. Instead, he took 2 arrows from his quiver and put them by the side of his bride. Then, when it was dawn, he put the arrows back in his quiver and left. After some time, the mother saw that her daughter was pregnant, but she could not discover where the father had gone or who he was. As it happened, the daughter was pregnant with twins. When it came time for her to come, the twins argued about which way they should come out. The wicked one said, "Let's go out of the side." But the other twin said, "No, we might kill our mother." At this, the wicked twin pretended to agree. He let his brother go out first, but then he tried to go out of his mother's side. This caused the death of his mother. The twin brothers were raised by their grandmother. The oldest son was named Terangiawago, which means the holder of heaven. The youngest was called Tawis Karun, which means flinty rock. He was called that because his entire body was covered in rock. As the boys grew up on their island, they both became very good hunters with the bow and arrow. Tawis Karun was the best hunter, and his grandmother loved him more than his brother. This meant Terangiwago was not a successful hunter and suffered from their unkindness. One day, when Terangiwago was wandering around the island feeling sorry for himself, the very proper-looking older man came up to him and said, "My son, I have seen your distress and heard your lonely cries. You are unhappy in the loss of a mother and in the unkindness of your grandmother and brother. I know how to comfort you. I am your father, and I will be your protector. Therefore take courage and do not be sad. Take this," giving him an ear of maize, "plant it and look after it in the way I tell you. It will give you support, independent of hunting, at the same time that it will give you tasty foods which you may eat. I am the great turtle which supports the earth on which you move. Your brother's bad treatment will get worse as he gets older. Put up with it patiently until the time appointed, before which you shall hear more." After saying this, the man showed Terangiwago how to plant the corn. Then he disappeared. Terangiwago planted the corn and then went home. When the corn began to grow, he spent his days looking after it. He cleared weeds and grass away so they wouldn't stop it from growing. Meanwhile, the wicked Tawiskarun caught the animals of the forest and put them in a dark cave. These included the deer, the great elk with branching horns, and all of the other creatures of the forest. By putting them all in prison, he stopped people from enjoying them. His actions were not pleasing to the Great Spirit who had created the animals for humans to enjoy. Terangiwago tried to discover the location of the cave where his brother kept the animals. He followed his brother many times, but each time Tariskarun managed to get away from him. Tarangiwago tried to hide himself along the path that led to the cave, so he would follow his brother without being seen. However, every time the sharp eye of his brother would spot him. One day, Tarangiwago noticed that his brother was very good at noticing what was around him, but he never looked up to see what was overhead. So the older brother decided to climb a tree. This time, when Tariskarun passed by and looked all around to find where Terangiwago was hiding, he couldn't see him. Just like normal, he didn't look up, which is where Terangiwago was sitting in a tree. Tawiskarun then carried on to the cave. His brother jumped down and followed after him, finally coming to the cave. When his brother had left, he set all the animals free and returned home. When Tawiskarun returned to the cave and discovered that all the animals had been set free, he was furious. He knew that his brother must have been the one who did it, so he began to plan his revenge. Terangiwago now spent his time making the earth a better place. He started up villages. He helped people to live happy lives. But his evil brother, Tawiskarun, came behind him and destroyed all the good work that his brother had done. The people suffered from the evil works of Tariskarun. Terangiwago was very concerned about the wickedness that his brother was bringing to the earth. However, he continued to wait patiently for his father, who had promised him he would come. One day, Tariskarun said to his brother, "Brother, what do you think there is on earth with which you might be killed?" Terangiwago replied, "I know of nothing that could take my life, except for the foam of the billows of the lake or the downy-topped reed." Terangiwago then asked, "What do you think would take your life?" Tariskarun answered, "Nothing except horn or flint." Then one day, Terangiwago was out hunting when he heard a bird singing. He heard it say his mother's name, who had been killed by his brother. He ran to the place that the voice had came from. He then called out, "Who is that who dares to use the name of my dead mother in my hearing?" He saw the tracks of a young deer, which he followed. He kept after the deer until spring turned to autumn. The deer dropped its first horns, and Terangiwago took them up and hung them on the forked branches of a tree. For 7 years, Terangiwago chased after the deer. Every autumn, when its horns fell, he picked them up and put them on a tree. Finally, he overtook the deer, which had now grown into a large buck. It turned to Terangiwago and begged for its life, saying, "Spare me, and I will give you information that you will find very helpful." The deer then told him, "I have been running from you for the last 7 years to test out how much you wanted the information. Now I will tell it to you. When your brother came into the world, he caused the death of your mother. Since then he has become more and more wicked. He now plans evil against you, so you must always be on your guard. As soon as he attacks you, fight back, and you will beat him." Tyrankiwago then returned home. Not long after, he was attacked by his brother. Tyrankiwago fought with the horn and flint stone, while Tawiskarun fought with froth and reed. But these did not hurt his brother. During this great battle, they passed through different places. As they struggled, their voices took on different tones in each place. The people who came to live in those places spoke different languages according to the sounds of the brothers' voices.